Welcome back to a Book a Day podcast. We are discussing this book called Heartbreak by the School of Life. In fact, I'm narrating this book here on this podcast. In the previous two episodes, we covered the first 7 chapters of the book. Now, let me start narrating with chapter 8. Chapter 8 is how we can be heartbroken even though they haven't left. So let's start with chapter 8. Here we go. How we can be heartbroken even though they haven't left. It sounds paradoxical that we can be heartbroken even though a lover is still with us. Yet, it's not so strange because the source of heartbreak is not precisely the physical departure of a lover, but rather the recognition that a partner doesn't really love us anymore, something which we may come to realize even without anyone having taken steps to pack their bags. The physical presence of a lover isn't any sort of a guarantee against heartbreak. We might be sharing a bed and bills with a partner, but the love there once was between us may have gone forever. Neither of us is leaving, but we are realizing that perhaps for the rest of our lives, we are going to have to exist without the feeling that our partner is delighted by our presence, fascinated by our character, and longing to hold and caress us. We may be very alone with this situation. If someone walks out of the door, there is great cultural support. There are songs and films, condensed bits of wisdom to lean on, and there are some very moving books. People understand and sympathize. But the death of a love in a continuing relationship has been comparatively neglected. There's even a distinct lack of sympathy that surrounds the topic. To a romantically minded culture, it can look rather pitiful to stay together for convenience once passion has gone. If romantic love is everything, then a union without desire is a profoundly offensive proposition. Yet, there might be many good reasons to stay together even when our hearts have quietly been broken. It's not what people dream of, but our finances are intertwined. There are shared commitments, perhaps even children. We have developed friends in common. We have established ways of living together that might be both convenient to us and a great help to others. And there won't be too many people available who are keen to start a new relationship with someone like us. So we may be wise to stick where we are, despite the deep vein of sorrow and sense of loss that accompanies us through the long evenings. The support we need is the realization that though the situation is painful and undiscussed, it is not for that matter strange or shameful. It is extremely ordinary and even rather noble. If we left and found someone else, we would probably end up in the same position a few years later, because in some ways, love almost always dies. The romantic intensity that marked those early years is not a description of life together in the long term. There are, of course, a few exceptions, but we make the same mistake of supposing that because very occasionally a couple stays in love for many years, this is a common occurrence. Instead, we should see it the way we might view certain jobs. Of course, it's possible for someone to make a great living by being a stand-up comic, but this is realistically only an option for a very few deeply unusual individuals. It tells us nothing about what is possible for us. If we are in a relationship where love has died, we are not particularly missing out. We have not particularly failed. We are simply meeting an ordinary yet rarely described fate. Chapter 9: The Wider Context of Our Sorrow. When a lover leaves us, we are acutely aware of the uniqueness of our pain, but in the interests of soothing our agonies, it may serve us well to remember the connection between heartbreak and other forms of dereliction. In one way or other, loss is everywhere, It is ubiquitous experience of all members of our species. And to keep this in mind is to connect our lonely sorrow with the griefs of humanity more broadly. Hearts are continuously being broken in so many ways by reality. The world is made of heartbreak. So when we meet rejection in love, we are plunged not only into our own private sorrow, but into the fundamental agony of the human condition. We are miserable, but we are also strangely glorious, because we are, at least for a while, alert to the essential woe of life. We are entering, ideally, into communion with the widest and deepest examples of loss. At its best, our suffering renders us more compassionate because it draws us closer to the hidden truth of all people. To live is to suffer. Our pain stops being purely personal and becomes a tender lament for the imprecisely known but utterly real sorrows of strangers. Chapter 10: Why we require poor memories to survive. Generally, our culture takes a very positive view of memories and the act of remembering. We esteem the study of history, we are expected to take photos to capture precious moments. We think that old injustices should be made good in the present. We promise not to forget old acquaintances, and we try hard in psychotherapy to reassemble rather the emotional essence of our childhoods. But without denying the value of any of this, it pays to honor the idea that in order to survive, we actively also need to do something else: forget. Certain memories threaten to destroy the future and our capacity to exist. If we held on to everything that had ever happened to us in all the technicolor vividness of the original event, we would be overburdened with anxiety and sadness. We would be continuously terrified and consumed with regret. We would be driven to despair by all the meanness we had encountered, all the stupidity we had been guilty of, and all the beauty and goodness we had lost. To have a poor memory contributes, in many contexts, to survival. In the 1870s, the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche circled this theme in an essay called On the Use and Abuse of History for Life. Though Nietzsche was himself a brilliant historian and hugely aware of political and social history, he also came to recognize that forgetting was essential to a capacity to thrive at both an individual and collective level. As he puts it, there is a degree of insomnia, of rumination, of the historical sense, through which living comes to harm and finally is destroyed, whether it is a person or a people or a culture. Nietzsche attributed the vigor and natural stoicism of animals to their ignorance of the past. If a cow knew all that had happened to her forebears, her life would feel impossible, the philosopher speculated. Analogously, he proposed that children can be moving to us precisely because they are not burdened by the memories and regrets that start to dampen the spirits of anyone past 25. Nothing much has yet happened to the very young, and therefore so much more seems possible. Nietzsche was approaching a radical but properly constructive question: what is the point of thinking about the past? His answer was precise. We should remember only insofar as it actually helps us to live in the present. To the extent that memories assist us in forming our plans and avoiding error, they are valuable. But when memories function as obstacles to better lives, we should put our energies into the business of forgetting. The best way to forget is not just time, but, more exactly, events. So as to separate ourselves from the things that haunt us, we have to ensure that we can lay down a dense layer of events between ourselves and them. We need, in short, to make stuff happen. This is particularly true after a bad breakup, when certain places, times of day, and activities remain imaginatively linked to the past and constantly evoke it painfully. For example, 1. When we see the pizza restaurant at the end of the road, We agonizingly recall cozy Sunday evenings there together. 2. Riding a bike down the canal triggers the thoughts of impromptu trips we made there on balmy days. 3. The cushions on the sofa painfully jab us, reminding us of the way our lover would use them while reading at night. We are surrounded by emotional tripwires. Our heart breaks again and again. We cannot, as we might at points want to, get rid of the world in which the relationship once played itself out. We cannot burn the cushions or uproot the restaurant. To forget, we have to impose a new layer of experience on the things we associate with lost love. We should take a new group of friends to the pizza place, sit at the side of the canal with a kind of book that particularly impresses us, or get fresh acquaintances to hang out with us on the sofa. We have to reclaim the material of our lives from the person who broke our heart. With a new commitment to forgetting, we can recover some of the hope of the child and the fortitude of a cow. Chapter 11. Our lover was not unique. They have gone and we miss them so much. No one can replace them. It feels as if we'll never be happy again. A well-intentioned friend might advise us to just not think about them. But curiously, it may be wiser and ultimately more helpful to force ourselves, if we can, to go over in our minds exactly what it is we miss about them. Instead of just saying that we miss them, we can try to define what precisely, piece by piece, was so nice about the relationship. Maybe they had a particularly sweet smile, or perhaps we were attracted to their worldly sophistication. It was great at the end of a difficult day to joke with them about our annoying colleagues. Maybe they gave us confidence at parties. Perhaps we liked that they introduced us to their genial friends or understood us so well in bed. When we say we miss them, what we really mean is that it is a set of good qualities and experiences that we are missing. It is tenderness, conviviality, and open mindedness we love, first and foremost, rather than inherently the bodily home in which these qualities came to rest. We encountered these things in and with them, and so assume that to lose the person is to lose everything linked to them. We are right to miss the good things. We still need to see a sweet smile. We still need to encounter sophistication. We need coziness and confidence and to be understood sexually. It is true that we will never meet another person exactly like the lover we have just lost. They were unique. But the good things we met in and through them are general. They are available elsewhere. Not all bundled up into one person in exactly this way, but distributed more widely across the species. Other versions of such smiles exist, other versions of their sophisticated, slightly cynical take on life, other capacities to make ambitious weekend plans or laugh at pomposity. In losing one person, we cannot logically forever have lost contact with the elements that made them valuable and that continue to exist scattered throughout humanity. One of the odder and more profound lessons of a broken heart is the eventual realization that the focus of our love is not really an individual person, but a range of good things which, thankfully, cannot be the unique property of a single person, but can be found in other potential partners, waiting for us to be ready to encounter them as soon as we are stronger. And finally, chapter 12, the consolations of friendship. One of the most subtly hurtful and quietly damning of all remarks, perhaps quietly and sweetly delivered on the doorstep at the end of a long evening, with a taxi hovering somewhere just out of sight, is the suggestion that we should in the end probably remain just good friends. We know exactly what to understand by this. The path towards a tender future is being gently but firmly closed off. We are, with a smile, being shunted into the category of the failed and the scorned. They must have worked out the embarrassing truths about us, all the ones that we tried so hard to disguise and even to believe didn't exist, and have logically decided to take their leave. We return home crushed to an empty room that we left with butterflies and elevated hopes only a few hours before. We hear the invitation of friendship as synonymous with insult because our romantic culture has continuously and from a young age made one thing sharply clear to us. Love is the purpose of existence, friendship is the paltry, depleted consolation prize. Though this may seem like common sense, what should detain us and encourage us to probe a little at the claims made on love's behalf is one basic source of evidence: the behavior, level of satisfaction, and state of mind of those who engage in it. If we were to judge love chiefly by its negative impact, the extent of the tears, the depths of the frustrations, the viciousness of the insults that unfold in its name, we would not continue to revere it as we do, and might indeed mistake it a form of illness or aberration of the mind. The scenes that typically unfold between sniping lovers would scarcely be considered imaginable outside of conditions of open hostility. Those we love, we honor with our worst moods, our most unfair accusations, our most wounding insults. It is to our lovers that we direct blame for everything that has gone wrong in our lives. It is they we expect to know everything we mean without bothering to explain it. It is to their minor errors and misunderstandings that we respond with sulks and rage. By comparison, in friendship, the supposedly worthless and inferior state whose mention should crush us at the end of the date, we bring our highest and noblest virtues. Here we are patient, encouraging, tolerant, funny, and most of all, kind. We expect a little less and therefore, by extension, forgive an infinite amount more. We do not presume that we will be fully understood by one single individual and so treat failings lightly and humanely. We don't imagine that our friends should admire us without reserve and stick by us whatever we do. So we put in effort and behave, pleasing ourselves as well as our companions along the way. We are in the company of our friends, our best selves. Paradoxically, it is friendship that often offers us the real route to the pleasures that romanticism associates with love. That this sounds surprising is only a reflection of how underdeveloped our day to day vision of friendship has become. We associate it with a casual acquaintance we see only occasionally to exchange inconsequential banter. But real friendship is something altogether more profound. It is an arena in which two people can get a sense of each other's vulnerabilities, appreciate each other's follies without recrimination, reassure one another as to their value, and greet the sorrows and tragedies of existence with wit and warmth. Culturally and collectively, we have made a momentous mistake which has left us both lonelier and more disappointed than we ever needed to be. In a better world, our most serious goal would not be to locate one special lover with whom to replace all other humans. It would be to put our intelligence and energy into identifying and nurturing a circle of true friends. At the end of an evening, we would learn to say to certain prospective companions, with an embarrassed smile as we invited them inside, knowing that this would come across as a painful rejection, "I'm so sorry, couldn't we just be lovers?" So that was the book. In the end, they have mentioned a few benefits of a broken heart, which I'm going to narrate. The first one is it hurt horribly. We were convinced that we would die from the pain, and yet, remarkably, we have not. We are still around and will next week go to a party. We reach a rather extraordinary conclusion. We have managed to survive, and so we can conclude we are a great deal stronger than we originally anticipated. Number two, we have understood so much more about ourselves. The lessons were delivered in a grim way, of course, but through all the recriminations and accusations, the arguments and the tensions, we learned things. We have come to recognize in calmer moments that we are really rather difficult to live with, a crucial realization upon which our capacity to be a little easier to be with in the future can develop. Number three, as we recover, we realize that our inner contentment isn't entirely dependent on any one person in particular. There are many people and things that can sustain and support us. The great love has gone, but many other loves are still open to us. We become more appreciative of what remains to us. There are many captivating books to read, new foods to try. The park is coated with enchanting flowers. We have friends who will put up with our calls late in the night. There is so much left to love. Number four, we learn to temper our expectations. All relationships are seriously imperfect in certain respects. We should endeavor to not ask quite so much of the next person we are with. We will know to be grateful for good enough. Number five, we have gone through one of the universal sorrows of humanity. We rarely hear about the broken hearts of others, but we know that almost everyone has their own version of our sorrow. Our compassion for our fellow humans, and hence also for ourselves, becomes deeper and wider. We grow kinder and, in some moods, a little readier to laugh warmly at the absurdities and contradictions of the heart. So, with that, I will finish the book, and I hope you enjoyed listening to the book. I hope you enjoyed this journey, even though I'm sure if you are going through or if you have gone through a heartbreak, it must have been a difficult read. But as we saw in the end, there are some upsides to have a broken heart, and we eventually become a better version of ourselves. So, with that, I will take your leave. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.